All right, let's get right into it. If you've been following artificial intelligence over the last few years, you're probably used to a very specific story, right? Miraculous capabilities, ever expanding models, and just mind bending benchmarks. But putting on my industry analyst hat, looking at the landscape today and mid 2026, I can tell you that narrative has fundamentally shifted. We are right in the middle of what we call the Great Correction. We're moving away from this subsidized experimental playground and crashing into a market defined by brutal, hard-nosed unit economics. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to break down the exact financial and structural forces completely reshaping the cognitive era. Just look at this number. $765 billion. That is the projected annual capital expenditure for AI infrastructure right now. I wanted to hook you immediately with this figure because, well, it signals the staggering, immediate financial weight of this market correction. This isn't just a fun tech boom anymore. It is a massive, highly capital-intensive infrastructure build-out, and the bill has finally come due. So here is our roadmap for understanding how this whole industry is pivoting today. We're going to cover 1. The subsidy era ends. 2. The CapEx trap revealed. 3. The open source insurgency. 4. Giants versus open infrastructure. And finally, 5. The new router economy. Let's jump right in.
All right, part 1. The subsidy era ends. From miracles to margins.
You know, for the first 3 years of the generative AI boom, the true cost of intelligence was kind of hidden. It was masked behind venture capital and hyperscaler balance sheets that were basically just focused on a massive land grab for adoption. But as noted in this strategic economic report, the mounting inference bill has become the primary constraint. Companies were literally exhausting their annual AI budgets in a matter of months. So, to survive, giants like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Anthropic are having to tighten the taps. They're shifting away from that subsidized unlimited access model we all got used to and moving heavily towards strict token or credit-based billing. They just have to, simply to cover soaring energy and silicon costs.
Which brings us to Section 2. The CapEx trap revealed the infrastructure reality.
To really grasp this correction, we have to look at the hard physical layer that's forcing these economic changes. Actually building the physical foundation of the cognitive era is proving way more expensive than anyone anticipated. Next-generation data centers have nearly doubled in cost, hitting $20 million per megawatt. Let that sink in. And the bottlenecks, they've shifted. It's no longer just about raw compute power. Memory, especially high-bandwidth memory, and interconnects are the dominant cost drivers now. We are hitting hard physical ceilings on thermal and power density. To put a really fine point on the pressure at the absolute frontier, OpenAI faces a projected net loss of $16 billion in 2026. Because, as it turns out, simulating human thought burns cash almost as fast as it burns electricity. And this brings us to a really fascinating economic contradiction. The true unit of cost is no longer the token, but the completed task. See, as the cost of an individual token falls, inference usage expands super aggressively into multi-step workflows. A system doesn't just read one single prompt anymore, right? It retrieves, it reasons, it uses tools, and it validates. Every single step adds up. In a live production environment, a single automated decision can now cost tens of cents. Intelligence is now governed by system economics, not just flat model pricing.
Which leads us to Section 3, the open source insurgency, bridging the good enough gap.
Just as those proprietary models are kind of forced to become this premium tier, a massive, highly disruptive counterforce has arrived on the scene. Open-weight models have achieved something truly incredible through just ruthlessly focused engineering. They've reached a level of maturity that now satisfies 90% of enterprise needs, and they do it at a tiny fraction of the cost.
Just take a look at the SWE-bench verified coding benchmark. Open-weights models are no longer just playing catch-up, they are mathematically proving capability sufficiency. V4 Pro hits 91.2%, and models like QN 3.6, they're in a statistical dead heat with premium proprietary systems like Claude Opus 4.7. Capability parity for the vast bulk of real-world tasks isn't some future prediction anymore. It is literally today's reality.
And the cost advantage here is staggering. I mean, the release of DeepSeek v4 was an absolute watershed moment. It delivered GPT-5 class coding and reasoning for just 28 cents per million output tokens. That's 8 to 100 times cheaper than Western proprietary models. Beyond that, enterprises aren't just looking for some general God-in-a-box chatbot anymore anyway. They are using highly specialized open-source modality stacks. Tools like MinerRow and Colpoly are processing complex PDFs and visual charts locally,
while NVIDIA's Canary QN pushes audio transcription error rates below 6%. This is high-efficiency, highly targeted utility labor. All right, Section 4, Giants versus Open Infrastructure, the bifurcated market. Because of these exact dynamics we just talked about, the industry is naturally splitting into two very distinct operational roles. Let's objectively contrast them. On one side, you have the reasoning elite, those closed-source giants. They aren't just selling tokens anymore. They've pivoted all the way up the stack. Corporations pay them a heavy premium for strategic orchestration and indemnified safety. Basically, you are buying legal guarantees and predictable compliance. On the other side, you have the commodity workforce. That's open source. They provide the high-volume, repetitive, digital blue-collar labor, summarizing thousands of emails, transforming data formats, the kind of stuff that can be run cheaply, locally, and totally privately. And this divergence is making a concept called local sovereignty incredibly important right now. Sovereignty is basically the freedom to choose exactly how and where your intelligence is deployed, completely decoupling your model access from your infrastructure choice. Organizations are increasingly choosing to run highly capable, say 32 billion parameter models on their very own private hardware. Why? Simple. It preserves privacy, it completely prevents vendor lock-in, and it gives them the total strategic freedom to manage risk on their own terms. So I want to pose this pivotal question to you to sort of shift our perspective from raw tech to competitive strategy. If intelligence itself is practically free and abundant, what actually remains scarce?
And the answer to that is in Section 5, the new router economy, decomposing workflows.
The answer really lies in the system layer. Value has fundamentally shifted upward. Modern agent-based systems are incredibly complex. They don't just spit out a quick answer. They decompose tasks into a strict, multi-step workflow: planning, retrieval, reasoning, execution, and validation. Because each one of these steps adds compute overhead, the system layer has become this massive exercise in efficiency engineering. Think about it. If your agent fails at the execution step, retrying that whole sequence multiplies your costs. Minimizing the cost per successful outcome is the true game now. The ultimate synthesis of all this is a major move toward a tiered router architecture. You simply don't use the smartest, most expensive model for every single task anymore. Instead, intelligence is invoked dynamically based on cost, complexity, and risk. So you route your routine, everyday background tasks to your cheap, self-hosted open-source models, and you only escalate up to the premium proprietary models when complex orchestration or, say, legal indemnification is strictly required. I want to anchor our conclusion today with this incredibly powerful concept from the report. The end state of this narrative is an AI that has become invisible plumbing. I love that. Operational efficiency today relies entirely on agent swarms, systems like Kimi K2.6 solving massive enterprise problems completely seamlessly in the background. It's no longer magic, guys. It's a utility. It's just plumbing. Please emphasize this final thesis for your own operational strategies. Control, not raw intelligence, is the new competitive advantage. The Great Correction hasn't killed the AI industry at all. It has just finally grounded it in economic reality. The market of the future firmly belongs to those who have the most efficient orchestration logic, not just the single smartest model. So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. In a world of nearly free, completely ubiquitous intelligence, who controls your invisible plumbing? I really want you to think deeply about your strategic autonomy and your infrastructure choices moving forward. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack the cognitive era, and I'll see you in the next explainer.